we are going to speak today about anger in oneness. I'm going to say that again, anger in oneness. Because in order to truly find the inner peace and oneness, we have to embrace anger. And this is a concept that I know I've spoken about before. And even if we look over the last couple of weeks of the message that the Divine Feminine brought forward in the State of the Unity and some of the conversations that we've had, we have touched a little bit about this, but it came up for me this week, and I always like it when I can open up to what is present in the moment and bring that to you here on the radio. And one of the things that I noticed this week, well, first of all, I think it's very important for us to look at this in a global piece because, and I say that, as I say peace, I see it spelled both ways, P-I-E-C-E and P-E-A-C-E, because I believe that embracing our anger is also actually going to help bring global peace. And I'm going to get to that at the end of the show, but we're going to start in the individual level at this point because what I noticed, I was talking actually to a friend, and she had a disagreement with somebody in her life, and they were sort of at odds. Let's say it was a passionate disagreement. And she was saying, I'm really working hard not to be angry at this person. And I said to her, you can't do that. You can't push the anger away, that you want to overcome the anger. And in order to overcome the anger, you have to let yourself feel the anger. What I've noticed with a lot of people who've taken my classes, worked with me individually, or are in my life in some form, is that there's a misunderstanding in our world that anger is one of the bad emotions that we want to suppress in order to be spiritual and peaceful people. And you know me, I'm all about feeling emotion, and I'm all about embracing the full spectrum of emotion. So how do we reconcile that anger is actually part of the beauty of our emotional and spiritual experiences? And the way we do that is we allow ourselves to feel it, because in oneness, we cannot push anything outside of ourselves, and we certainly cannot push one of the primary energies of our beingness, which is our emotions, outside of ourselves. So as we are moving towards deep inner peace, we must actually go through the vibrations of those emotions that we felt like were not spiritual or not healthy or not good to express. Now, I'm not talking about getting stuck in these emotions. I'm talking about allowing yourself to move through them. Actually, when we try to suppress them, when we think that there are bad emotions that we should not experience, then we actually hold on to them. We actually bring them into our body. And my understanding from Spirit is that cancer is actually anger turned inward. There's I can talk about that in another show, actually, because I have a whole bunch more information about the vibrational response of cancer in our world. But think about that illness, disease, let's even incorporate it to all forms of dis-ease, that when we suppress our anger and we turn it inward, then it's going to come out as a health problem. It's also going to seep out when we don't expect it, when we don't want it to, like a teapot steaming out. It's going to show up in various areas. So in order to find this inner peace that we are looking for, that spiritual oneness and being in that space, one of the first steps in that process is actually being willing to take off the label of bad and good emotions and allow ourselves to move into each emotion. And as we do that with anger and passion are the same vibration. So passion is actually anger that is transformed. And if we're suppressing anger, we're then suppressing passion. And I think that's where we get that misunderstanding that a spiritual person is disengaged from the world, is just almost boring. And I think sometimes people don't even want to take that spiritual path and reach that because they think it's going to be boring. And I'm here to tell you that aligning with oneness and living from this place is anything but boring. I am more passionate, more vibrant, more alive, more connected to the earth, the world, and the people around me than I ever have been. And that comes from the journey that I took within. So now let's look at how we do this, and I'm going to take you through a process here. Because let's start with the idea. Let's start with those of you, and you might be in any part of the spectrum, and you'll jump in and understand the spot when we get to the level that's going to help take you to the next step. But let's talk first to those of you who have been a little at odds with anger, have been afraid of experiencing anger, have pushed it outside of yourself in order to feel peace. And so when you experience it, you just set it aside and say, no, I can't be angry. I don't want to be angry at that person. You can even justify it. One of the things that I did, actually, a while back, I was talking to Daphne Rose Kingma, who is an author of some really beautiful books about emotion and embracing them. And what she noticed in me is that I would, because I had the ability to shift into spirit, and that was prior to really integrating into that oneness where I'm just always conscious of all of the levels. But prior to that, I would flip out. Isn't that funny? That's the word we say when people lose it in rage, right? But I would flip out in the opposite way. I would just flip over to spirit, see the bigger picture, know that nobody was to blame, and just not experience the emotion from that space. So I bet you we have people that do both of those or one of the others. One is we experience anger so much that we just try to push it aside because we don't want to experience it. We've had negative experiences with it, and so we just sort of suppress it, let it eat up our tummies, and just feel it and let it try to deny it. The other is to flip into that spiritual consciousness where we're sort of above it. And there's a benefit to seeing it from the bigger picture, but in order to really experience life, we have to actually then move through it from this lower vibration. And when I say lower vibration, it's not a hierarchy, it's not a good or a bad, it's simply vibrating at a lower rate, which is our physical rate. So when we're in this experience, in the physical experience, and we have a trigger that provokes the feeling of anger inside of ourselves, what we want to do in this phase is to sit with it, to allow ourselves to explore that feeling and to actually bask in it a little bit. You know, every time I put a topic out to teach or to do on the radio show, I've said this before, I experienced that, a replication of that in my life. And as I've moved through more and more of my own personal issues, it becomes easier, but I still have to tap into that in order to reach out to each of you and to be on that right vibrational level. So this morning, as I knew I was talking about anger today, I had both my computers crashed for different reasons. The internet was messing up. My phone was messing up. And I had a lot of work that I thought I needed to get done today. I had actually set the day aside to work on computer things and admin work. And so the frustration built. Now, I still had the awareness that it was about getting ready for the class, but I was just basking in it. And I watched myself observing it at the same time. You know, it was actually kind of fun to be in an angry mood at that moment and to just be pissed off and to feel like I wanted to have a temper tantrum. I was talking to a friend, and he was actually thinking it was quite fun, too, because he had not seen me angry very often. And he said, you know, it's great to hear you angry because I know that when I am as I evolve more and more, I still get to have those moments, and it's okay. And that is true. It's okay. But the other piece, it's okay. It's okay. That's what gets me to where I am, where I can be in peace, is that I'm willing to experience every emotion that comes up, even anger. We're going to talk about healthy ways to experience that. And today was healthy. I mean, I was just, in fact, you know, the humor can come out. I mean, isn't it sometimes funny when we're angry, like the humor that comes out when we come from that vibration, because it's passionate, it's fun. on some level. And I know for me that was something lighthearted, and I knew I was experiencing it and I would be out of it. But think about when you're really angry, or think about angry people in your life. Some level of it has to be appealing, or we wouldn't keep going there, right? So there's something in that vibration that we actually like. And that's one of the pieces. Identify the fact that we actually like that vibration sometimes. But what is it we really like about it? We like the passion. We like the feeling of alive. We like the adrenaline rush that comes. And we can actually invoke that in more positive ways when we're conscious about it. But to begin with, we have to get comfortable with that vibration. We have to feel like we can experience that and that it isn't going to harm someone. And I think that one of the things that happens is we get nervous that we are going to cause harm with our anger. Kind of goes back to our origin. If you think of the Greek gods and the Roman gods and all the stories from all the different areas of the world during the times of the gods and the goddesses, that more powerful vibration at the beginning of time is with the instant manifesting. If we experience an emotion of anger, say, a whole forest could be destroyed, or you know, we would have a war. And so that's inside of us, this feeling that, you know, if I, whether we believe in that history or not, there's this feeling inside of ourselves that remembers how powerful we are, feels that vibration is powerful, and is really afraid of what we can do with that. And so sometimes that frightens us. But when we embrace it and we experience it just as an emotion, not as an action, just as an emotion, that we can experience this right now. One of the first things we have to do is clear out all the anger that we have already suppressed inside of us. So when we're first opening up to experience this emotion, we might find that it feels a bit out of control, or that we're frightened of it being out of control because we've pushed so much down that as soon as we get a trigger of anger, it doesn't come out in appropriate proportion to the situation, because it's like a floodgate opening and all the rest of the anger comes out. And so in order to first move through that phase, which is probably why people push it away in the earlier phases, is because, you know, we're experiencing that and it feels overwhelming to move through that. And so, and it feels unholy or unspiritual to do that. And I'm telling you that to become the oneness, to become that remembrance, and to reflect that on earth, this is essential. It is essential to sit in this. But you do not have to do it alone. You can allow the vibration of the meditations to come in and to clear some of that. In fact, you can even clear some of that in meditation before you are triggered with it. You can allow yourself to go into a meditation and to go back to some of the things that upset you, and to work those out in your spiritual garden, in your meditation. You can go back to some of the things in your childhood or your earlier life in which somebody upset you that you suppressed, and maybe some of the difficult relationships, and you can clear those out in meditation. You can place a violet flame around you, the transmuting violet flame. Just imagine a beautiful violet flame, or a powerful, deep violet flame in your home, in your car, around you, clearing that out. So even though you suppressed a lot of energy and of anger, and it needs to come out, it does not have to come out in the same proportion of what you suppressed, because now you are aware of the spiritual energies that are here to support you. You can call on that to clear that, so that each time you experience anger now, it will be in proportion to the moment. So if somebody triggers something for you, it doesn't bring up a whole backlash of unexpressed emotion. So the first phase, if you haven't been embracing anger, is to do that both in the spiritual work, and then as far as asking Spirit, the angels, whatever language you use to help clear that out for you. Then begin to allow yourself to sit in anger as the situation comes up. You do not have to direct that anger to anyone. You can just simply let it come out. So if somebody triggers anger, you can write an email with everything that you would want to say in all of your uncensored raw self, and send it to yourself. And then delete it after you've read it a few times, and let that energy get out. You do not have to put that on to someone else. You can take responsibility for your anger. So this is what we're doing. We're experiencing anger, but we're also taking responsibility for it, And we're allowing ourselves to experience that until we can move through it to find the beauty of it. So true forgiveness comes when we actually can look at a situation and be grateful because whatever that situation was, it transformed us, so we can say it was given for us and we are grateful for it. So when somebody triggers you and you use that to experience this emotion, to move through, to reconnect with your passion, which is on the other side of that suppressed anger, and you allow yourself to experience that and feel that vibration for life again, and to take responsibility for any unhealed aspects of yourself that still bring that forward, then you feel really great. And I'm telling you that the peace comes on the other side of that. The peace in the individual situations in which you now understand and are grateful because the person or the situation has allowed you to experience something that moved you more towards incorporating the understanding of oneness into your whole life. And so you're grateful for that. You experience life more vivaciously. You can feel peace because peace comes on the other side of that. The actual peace that people are experiencing that you are looking for, the ones who are truly in that centered space of peace, that comes from experiencing life, from experiencing emotions, from taking responsibility for it, allowing yourself to move into that, and then simply being in that space so that as life comes up, less and less things then do end up triggering you. So when you have cleared out your storylines, when you have cleared out those things that felt unhealed, that felt like it was difficult for you to bask in pure unconditional love and oneness, and now those things are cleared, now you go through life and things do not get you as angry. But it's not because you're suppressing them or afraid to experience anger. You simply don't have as many triggers left inside of you that need healing, because triggers inside of us are just pointing out whatever it is about ourselves that we don't accept, that we need to accept in order to remember our perfection and oneness. So once we start to experience that again, we don't get as angry. But the waves of emotion still come. And now those waves of emotion is the next phase that I want to talk to the people who may have already done a lot of the work that I just talked about. Although we keep doing it, we always have to do it whenever anything triggers us, whether it's little or bigger, whether it's tied to past situations or not, we still go through the process. We still get that out. We allow ourselves to vent, and we release it, and we sit in it, we experience it until it moves through, and we find that centered peace on the other side. Once we've cleared out our own individual vibrations and storylines that keep us remembering oneness, and we move back into that remembrance of oneness, and we are now in that space, now we are connected to the universal energy, right? Now our awareness is not just of our individual storyline, but of how do we serve the whole, because in order for us to truly embrace the oneness and feel this essence, we remember we are one with all people and all beings, and therefore our desire is for all beings to remember that, because in our wholeness we won't feel as if we have completely ascended in this vibration until everyone does. So now our desire isn't so much about individual healing and finding that inner peace within ourselves. Our desire then becomes about being in the world and helping the whole world to find that inner peace as we do that. And now what happens, for those of you who have done that initial phase of work and you're in this phase, what you're going to start to experience is the fact that there are universal emotions moving through. They're like waves. I saw it very vividly just a couple of weeks ago, and I've always felt it, but it became very visual for me, these waves of emotion that go through us, and sometimes they're through the world. They're just waving through the world because we are one and we are in energy, and that energy is moving. So right now we're picking up in a lot of tension as we move through this shift, and everything is being amplified on the individual level, which then means the collective level becomes amplified. And as more and more people are opening to this experience and embracing the energies and being moved towards that understanding of oneness, we see more and more waves, stronger waves of energy moving through our world, and these waves carry vibrations that we associate with emotions. So now when we have done the work and we feel pretty clear, and we might move between both of these levels for a while, but when we really feel like we've cleared out our own individual work, we start to become aware of these emotions that are moving through on a universal level. Again, now in this phase, we can be at peace with this. We can experience, we can know that a wave of emotion is coming in. We're going to instinctually go through our own individual storyline to see if it is associated with anything. And if we choose to attach it to something, then we'll process it through that. Or we may realize it's really not attached to anything, and we're just processing that emotion, sort of like I did this morning. Okay, I'm just going to be angry for today because that's what's coming up. Actually, prior to that, I was just having my normal Zumba. Zumba is what I love to do almost more than anything in the world, and well, I don't know. I love a lot of things, but I'm very passionate about that, and I enjoy it. That's my me time. And I started the class, and I was just normal, and then all of a sudden I had this wave of sadness, and then I went into a wave of anxiety, and I'm like, what is this about? Because it's not about me. I don't have these feelings coming through. And then it went into the anger. But what that is that's what's going on in the world right now. There's a tremendous turbulence of energy that people are experiencing, and I'm just picking up on that. So I just experience it, I acknowledge it, I pour love into it, and I let it move on. And every emotion, including the anger that comes through with that, I do the same thing. I just experience it and allow it to move on. And as I do that, I'm assisting the whole. So this is where I'm talking about. This is truly how we find the peace in the world. Because in my understanding, my belief is that we are going to have world peace when enough people have done their individual work to embrace anger and all of the emotions, to master them, not by mastery as in suppression, but in mastery as the master of these emotions, one who has embraced, aligned, and transformed these emotions into the higher consciousness. And sits in that, and the world vibration shifts with that, because oneness on earth comes from us embracing every energy so that we do not need the mirror of conflict anymore. We actually, as a human race, still need the mirror of conflict and war, or it would not exist. But and it's that outside of ourselves. It's the fear of looking at those attributes inside of ourselves that make us want to push against another race, another culture, another person. We want to identify them as a monster because we don't want to look at those energies that we deem monster energies inside of us, those emotions that we fear inside of us. When we place those attributes on someone else and push it aside from us, it gives us a temporary feeling of relief, but it will not give us a complete feeling of peace, because we remember within us that that energy is not only within us, but that what we are seeing in that mirror outside of us is us as well. And so when we shift our energy from trying to demonize somebody else, and we look at the demons inside of ourselves, and when I say demons, I'm not talking about entities or some outside force. I'm saying those aspects of ourselves that we did not want to look at. When we look at those aspects, then we are able to find that centerpiece, and that will wave over our world, and we will indeed come to a place of peace on earth. Thank you all for listening to me. I know that this only touched the surface, and I know that anger is something that needs to be looked at in deep and experienced, and find somebody to guide you with that if you need to. But I promise you that on the other side of that, when you have allowed yourself to be in these emotions, the inner peace that you experience, even in the various spectrums of emotion, is so steady and so beautiful that passion will be your natural state. Have an amazing week, everyone.